Does this principle still work for a son or daughter who doesn't want anything to do with you?
That's a great question.
I shouldn't have said, does it still work? I should say, how can it?
Yeah, how do we apply it? How do we apply that? Okay. So,
And you don't have to answer that, but that just came out of my mouth.
I think it's a great question. I'm just seeing if I get an answer. So I'm just going to give it to you as it comes to me. So I'm going to think through it from this perspective. The calling out of sons, you'll notice, because of what I went through, that that's what God's doing with us. He has to call us out. I mean, he's the only one that can change the heart. The first thing that strikes me about this question is, we would all agree, I think, we cannot change the heart of another person. All agreed? So it's not like we can make this happen or make it work, so to speak. That's my first thought. The second thought is, God has given, when God puts a dad and a child with a child like that in that type of situation, it's not so much that he's after something in the child, he's after something in the dad. Our tendency is to think, okay, now what can I do to make this work to change them? That's not why God gave the child and has the child in that attitude. Yes, he's working in that child, but because the child has that attitude and the heart's turned away from the dad and doesn't want to be taught, for the dad, it's after something God's doing in the dad. For the dad to trust God and love whether anything happens here or not. Because the most important thing for us is to love. It's not whether the love works. Whether the love works or not, that's God's deal. I can't touch that. It's holy to the Lord. But I can love, and I can grieve in love. When we have a child like that, there's a lot of grief that goes with that. And Jesus was a man of sorrows and grief. He faced that kind of rejection all the time. Yet he loved, which is stunning to me. Somehow he is able to grieve and love at the same time and leave the outcome to his Father. And I think that's what he wants to do in the dad.
That's not easy to do.
It's impossible to do. Only God, only Jesus can do that. Because we have to realize that for me, he's living his life in me, and I need to experience the life of Christ as he grieves for my child in me, grieving over that child and the rebellion or the hardness that's there, that I can feel his grief without judging. And I can love, I can say, Lord, what is the, and when I say love, here's what I mean. Do the highest good for another person no matter what it costs us. That's the love of God. See, in the world when people say, I love such and such, what they mean is I love them because I can get something from them. In other words, love to them is your sustained will toward my highest good no matter what it costs you. That's the world's kind of love. God's kind of love is, I have a sustained direction of my will toward your highest good no matter what it costs me. I learned that from Jesus because that's his kind of love. So when we have a child, a dad has a child who's like that, to love is to have a sustained direction of the will toward the highest good of the child no matter what it costs the dad. And when that kind of love is being processed through the person, it changes the dad. It might not change the child, but it will change the dad. It makes the dad more like Jesus.
Wow.
You see, he becomes like Christ. So God's purpose for the dad, having a child that's in rebellion, is to sanctify the dad. The child is really more valuable to the dad broken than fixed. Everybody get that?
Run that by me again.
The child is more valuable to the dad broken than fixed. Because if the child was fixed, it wouldn't push the dad into experiencing Christ's love and loving like Christ. See, a person is more valuable to us when they don't do what we want, like we want, when we want. Now, that's not how the world thinks. The world thinks a person is valuable when they do what we want, like we want, when we want, as long as we can use them. That's what a broken world thinks like. But Jesus doesn't think that way. His love for us is not based upon what we do, because it's based upon his love for the Father. He's filled with the Father's love, so he can love with the love of the Father and do the highest good for the other person, no matter what it costs. But the only way he can do that is by being filled with the love of the Father, and the same is true for us. So, my first answer to that question is, God is calling out the Father through the child that's broken. Does that make sense? Now, whether he's going to call that child out to the Father, now we're going to jump into the third point that came to my mind, and that is to love them. And the best you can do to love them is be with them and to be a helper to them. Not change them, but be a helper to them. To say, I love you. And what can I do to help? How can I be with you? I just want to be with you. And then make ways to be with them and just listen. And listen so you can find out how you can help, and then help in a very, really practical way. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they will feel like you're loving them. They may not, because here's how that works. If somebody is angry and bitter, and then somebody loves them that they don't love because they're angry and bitter, they will sabotage anything you do to try to love them, because it makes them feel guilty. Because if they actually receive your love, then they feel like they have to love back, but they don't want to love back. So they'll sabotage everything you do to try to love them. Does that make sense? Because see, it knocks the scales off. You do something nice to them, and they're blaming you, that upsets the scale. They have to change, or they have to just keep blaming you or undermine and say, you know what, you really don't love, that's all fake, or whatever. They just will try to blow it off in some way, because otherwise they've got to change. They've got to come back and love back, but they don't. I mean, this is typical when I see this the most is more in a husband-wife relationship where the husband has gone and had an affair, and he wants to have this affair, and the wife tries to love him, and he will undermine everything that she does because he doesn't love her. He wants his way. Same thing can happen between parents and kids. The kids just want their own way, and God has let them run. He's let them go. And they need to go and they need to run until God's timing when they hit the wall. What you know is they're going to hit a wall, or you hope they hit a wall, that God will bring them to that point. What we want to do is be ready to be there when they hit that wall, and do everything we can to open the doors to where when that happens, we can be there to love them. Because more than likely, they're going to turn everybody else away that loves them. So we have to push through that wall and just keep being there. I'm sorry, that's the only thing that came to me. So I think it applies in that way. We take it and say, okay, love is being with them. Being with them is to be a helper. So I think, yeah, it applies. But whether it'll work to change them, we have to leave that to God. I'm going through something very similar to that right now. So I'm talking out of what I'm experiencing right now.
Just going to say, an illustration of that is the story of the prodigal son. The father let him go,
Yeah.
didn't beg him, But when he returned, the father saw him on the horizon.
He was looking,
and
wasn't
the
he?
father was looking for him. And when he came, he embraced him.
Sure, that's a great picture, isn't it? Thanks for adding to that.
It also says there that son had to come to his senses.
Yeah. God's got to, that's God's part in it. Bring him to his senses. And usually that comes the hard way. You know, whenever we think we can do life on our own, usually that means we're going to learn the hard way. Okay, another question? Yeah.
So a lot of men get called out, but not by their dad or by their, just
Sure.
growing in Christ. So what if a son gets called out and his dad is still a boy? How does that?
Yeah, I get that.
So what is their part in trying to bring that out? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yes, I do. So the first one's kind of obvious, and that's pray.
Right.
Pray for your dad. A second one is, this is going to be a what not to do. What not to do is judge and blame your dad.
Right. And
Yeah, I think you picked that up. So then the other thing is you reach out to him. Go be with him. It'll flip. It'll work this way. God could want to use you to call out your dad. He can do that because although this is the pattern, older to younger, you'd expect that.
Right.
But that's not always, it's not a hard and fast rule. God can call us out through anybody he wants to. And it could be our sons or even somebody younger who just in sharing their testimony, just watching you do life or just wanting to be with them. For instance, now this isn't completely the exact situation, but when Micah wanted to be with me, man, did that increase my respect for him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I want to listen to him. I ask his advice. I say, so Micah, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Tell me, it makes me want to seek him out. What makes him do that? Because that's like Jesus, and I want to tap into that because I could grow and learn from him in that area. So I've known that to happen before. I mean, I've shared this message now for almost 30 years, and I've had a number of sons that have come back like your age that have said, my dad wasn't called out, and I just went back and started loving my dad and shared with my dad what I was going through and cut my dad some slack and actually told him, said, Dad, I know this didn't happen to you. And I just think it's incredible what you've done when that didn't happen to you and you didn't know what to do and you still did the best you could. And I just want to thank you for that. And I just learned this from this message I heard from Equipping Men. And would you like to listen to it with me? And then they listened to it together and God called the dad out. So, yeah, God can use you, which is kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
To think about it, Yeah.
What if there's a calling out and there is the original calling out, somebody's like, and then there's like defeat or failure, and then the path becomes like blurry and confused, and then there's a second calling out. What happens to the first calling out? Is the second calling out always based on the first one, or is there a depth of a vision?
I think it's all a process. Because it's a process, it goes hot and cold, And sometimes when we're tested, we mess up and we fail. But that mess up and failure is necessary to the process because it's in our failure that we press on. We decide whether do I press on or do I not press on. In fact, I'm going to build on another thought on this one. Here's why failure is important. Remember what I said a moment ago? A person's more valuable when they're broken than when they're fixed. Now, here's why. When somebody is broken and or let's say they're not doing what you want, like you want, when you want, and they're offending you or hurting you, look at the potential for this. For you to love them, you have to go to God, experience his love, be filled with his love, and then just love because he loves. You're not basing it upon their performance. Now, when you do that, look how powerful that is. Because what that does in the person that you're loving is it shows them the basis of the relationship is not their performance. And they can become secure in your love because they failed and you still love them. So when are you loved most? Is it when you do what you think pleases God and you think, oh, he loves me because I did the right thing? Or is it when you've blown it and you go to him and ask his forgiveness and he still loves you? When are you more secure? It's the second one, isn't it? It's when you've blown it and you go to him and you find out he still loves you and he's still with you even though you blew it. So look what happened there. It was more valuable to you that you blew it and he still loved you than if you'd done what he wanted. Because you learned to become secure in his love that way. Which, by the way, let's go ahead and make this applicable to you married guys. When is your wife most valuable to you? It's when she's not doing what you like, when you like, how you like. Because that's when you have to give up the idol of your wife and be completely satisfied in the love of God, no matter what she does, so you can love her when she's not doing what you want. And when she's not doing what you want and you still love her because she's not performing and she knows she's not performing and you still love her, what does that do for her? It makes her secure in your love. And she knows she's not an object. She knows now she's a person. And you love her because she's a person, not because she's an object. Does that make sense? So see, she's really more valuable to you messed up than she is doing everything you want. By the way, only Christians think like this. And in fact, many Christians don't. You have to look at God's love and grasp what his love is. That's what's in the Equipped to Love book. I'm really sharing from that book. If you want to know more about love, that's kind of thinking that's there. So back to your question. You see, we're going to fail. In fact, there's going to be times when God's going to leave us. He'll start to call out, and he knows we're going to fail. He lets us fail. Just because he wants us to know that doesn't stop him from being with us and loving us. And then he keeps on calling. Then we go into a second phase, third and a fourth phase. It'll just keep going because he loves us and he's with us and he's not afraid of your failure because he's already paid the price for it. Can't kill you. Can't separate you. So he can use your sin to humble you and to build security in your relationship with him. Now, of course, that doesn't give you license just to go sin so you can know his love better. Right? Okay, just want to make sure that wasn't misunderstood. Okay. Another question? Well, I'm really grateful to you for coming and spending time with me this morning. It's been a real blessing to be with you. And I would love for you to post a review on my Facebook page if this has been encouragement to you. I don't want you to talk about Norm Wakefield. I want you to talk about Jesus. Are we all good on that? Yep. And the reason for that is there'll be people that maybe even like you, maybe you checked out on Facebook my page just to find out something about me before you come listen. There'll be people that will do the very same thing. And if it's been encouragement and there's reviews there on my page, spiritofelijah.com, there's a place for review, or on my Facebook page, Spirit of Elijah Ministries. Love to hear from you. Love to connect with you.